In a 6-3 decision that surprised many observers, the Supreme Court yesterday made it illegal to fire someone for being gay or transgender. The opinion was written by a Trump-appointed justice, Neil Gorsuch, who, along with Chief Justice John Roberts, voted with the liberal members of the court. The majority found that Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex, also applies to sexual orientation and transgender status. Justice Gorsuch wrote, "An employer who fires an individual for being homosexual or transgender fires that person for traits or actions it would not have questioned in a member of a different sex. Sex plays a necessary and undistinguishable role in the decision, exactly what Title VII forbids." Justices Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas dissented, saying no one in 1964 would have thought that, quote, discrimination based on sex meant discrimination because of sexual orientation or gender identity. Joining us now, Pulitzer Prize-winning editorial writer for The Washington Post and host of the Cape Up podcast, Jonathan Capehart. Also with us, New York Times reporter Jeremy Peters, who's been reporting on yesterday's 6-3 Supreme Court decision. Guys, good morning. It's good to see you both. Jonathan, I want to start with you because I mentioned some people were surprised, maybe not by the outcome, but by the vote, 6-3. I think you were one of them.
Yes, I was very surprised. I'm no lawyer, so there are lots of lawyers who weren't surprised because Justice Gorsuch is a, quote, textualist. He looks at the text and does the case that's before him follow the text, and that's the way he's going to go. But for those of us who aren't lawyers, this was huge. One, because the decision was 6-3, not 5-4, from a conservative court. Also because Justice Gorsuch was appointed by President Trump, nominated and was confirmed by President Trump. And so the fact that you have this incredible new expansion of rights for the LGBTQ community coming from this conservative court truly is breathtaking. And breathtaking also because it comes 5 years after the Supreme Court made same-sex marriage the law of the land.
And Jonathan, just taking a step back, you can take off your reporter hat for a minute and just speak as who you are about how big this is. I think most people in this country didn't realize that more than half of the states in our country, it still was legal to fire someone based on their sexual orientation. So culturally and practically, how big a deal is this?
Culturally and practically, this is huge. Almost 4 years ago, I was able to get married to my husband, thanks to the Supreme Court. But we were also mindful that our Saturday wedding, I could have been legally fired if I were in the other 29 states where it's not protected. I could have been fired on my first day back at work after my wedding. What this ruling does is that it makes it illegal for someone to be fired because they are gay or gay, lesbian, or transgender. You know, as an American, as a gay American, to have the Supreme Court recognize once again the fact that I am human, the fact that I have dignity and that dignity should be affirmed is incredible. But the fact that it's coming from a decidedly conservative Supreme Court makes it that much more special and sweet. In the long run, we should not have to rely on the Supreme Court to guarantee these rights. In a functioning democracy, this should have been made law by the legislative branch. And this shows just how broken the legislative branch is. The Equality Act passed out of the House earlier this year and is sitting in the Senate waiting for Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to give it a vote. But he won't, because there are no judges. He's only interested in confirming more conservative young judges to the federal judiciary.
So, Jeremy Peters, you were reporting all day yesterday about this case, about this outcome. It's interesting to look where the country is and sort of seeing the Supreme Court and states try to catch up to it. In a recent poll by CBS News, 82% of Americans said, yes, of course, gay and lesbian people should be afforded the same rights in terms of discrimination as everyone else, including, by the way, 71% of Republicans. So this indeed was a long time coming.
Right, Willie. And I think one of the key points to look at here is while Justice Gorsuch justified his opinion in a fundamentally conservative way, saying, I'm reading the text of the law, and the text of the law says that you can't discriminate based on gender, and that should apply to sexual orientation and gender identity as well. There's something larger culturally going on here, and the changes that have been sweeping the nation with regard to acceptance of gay rights, of transgender people, did not stop at the Supreme Court steps. There are, as one lawyer said to me yesterday, I was interviewing, justices of the Supreme Court now who know and probably love gay people. Almost all of them probably do. And that's a significant change from just 10 years ago. These gay justices have, in fact, clerked for Justice Gorsuch. So it's really kind of unthinkable that these relationships in his personal and social life would not have had an impact on his thinking here, though he did ultimately ground his opinion in a conservative interpretation of the law. You know, even conservatives have gay friends, gay relatives, and I think that awareness of them, that awareness that they're just ordinary people who are entitled to rights under the Constitution, is what was at play here in a pretty significant way.
Jeremy, it's Catty here. I thought your reporting on Gorsuch's relationship with gay people in his past was interesting yesterday. Is there anything else coming up in the next few months until the November election where the court still has to rule on this issue, or where President Trump might try to take kind of counteraction in order to shore up his own evangelical base? It was pretty clear yesterday from his comments that he was disappointed by the court's rulings. Could you see him trying to do something to win back conservative evangelical supporters on the issue?
So there certainly will be pressure on that, Catty, definitely. The conservatives, religious conservatives yesterday that I was talking to were quite upset and quite surprised by this decision. I think it's pretty fair to say this surprised people across the political spectrum. But there's only so much that President Trump can do. He's issued so many executive orders already that undermine, especially transgender protections. There's not a whole lot of arrows left for in that quill. So he's pretty limited. I will say this, though. There are a number of aspects of the law that conservatives, religious conservatives especially, and their legal organizations, and these are well-funded organizations, by the way, that have the ability to wage lawsuits and try to change the law here. They are looking at carve-outs for religious exemptions and things like that to housing law, to public accommodations law, to adoption law. You know, they want religious organizations to be able to say, for example, no, I will not allow an adoption of a child to a gay or lesbian couple. So I would be on the lookout for cases like that.
A monumental decision in the Supreme Court yesterday. Jonathan, I want to get you in on some campaign news as well. President Trump is now in a statistical dead heat with Joe Biden in the state of Iowa. The latest Des Moines Register Mediacom poll has Trump up 1 point, 44-43. That's, of course, within the margin of error. 4 years ago, Donald Trump carried that state by nearly 10 points. The poll also shows a significant gender divide, with Joe Biden up 14 points among women in that state, 50-36. President Trump leads among men without college degrees by 36 points, while Joe Biden is up 18 points among women without college degrees. Another state where the two seem neck and neck is in Arkansas. According to a recent Talk Business and Politics Hendricks College poll, President Trump is at 47% and statistically tied with Joe Biden, who sits at 45%. Donald Trump won Arkansas in 2016 by nearly 27 points. One postscript to that poll. On Sunday, Trump campaign lawyer Jenna Ellis tweeted out that Arkansas poll as evidence to the campaign's complaint that CNN's recent polls do not match others. But CNN's recent poll that showed Joe Biden up big was a national poll, which did match other recent national polls. Ellis later deleted the post and tweeted that she had posted the wrong poll before posting a link to a Zogby Analytics poll of who people thought would win the presidential election. All right, so putting that to the side for just a second, Jonathan, you look at some of these states that were runaways for Donald Trump in 2016. I'm not sure there are a lot of people who would bet much money that Joe Biden's going to win Arkansas, but the fact that in that poll anyway, it's within the margin of error. In Iowa, where Donald Trump won comfortably 4 years ago, there are places now where the Trump campaign is going to have to put in time and money to hold where it is, because it won obviously by that narrow margin in 2016 in just a few states.
Right. We shouldn't be talking about Arkansas. We shouldn't be talking about Iowa when it comes to former Vice President Biden's chances of winning there. The fact that we are shows that at least at this point in time, President Trump is in trouble in those states. I think it was time has become elastic. But I think it was last week or a couple weeks ago where I said President Trump is playing into Joe Biden's hands. And I think these polls are bearing out what I was saying. What I meant by that was Vice President Biden started out his campaign talking about fighting for the soul of America, fighting for who we are as a nation and what we want to see from a president. And what we have seen since the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks and a day ago, is a president who seemingly is out of control, out of touch, going all the way from his response to the coronavirus pandemic or lack thereof, right through to the unrest around the country over the killing of George Floyd. He doesn't seem in touch with the country.
All with our usual caveats that 4.5 months is an absolute lifetime to Election Day. Jonathan Capehart, Jeremy Peters, great to have both of you with us this morning. Thanks so much. And that does it for us on Morning Joe. We'll be right back here tomorrow morning. For now, Stephanie Ruhle picks up the coverage. Hey.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.